Wait for a minute. So in the last class, we learned how to handle exception using try and except block. What does try block contain? Which contains some set of statements. These statements may raise some exception. If any exception rise, then what happened? Immediately that respective except block can be called and it has resolved this issue. So what is the advantage we get by introducing exception handling? If any problem rise, if you do not handle the exception, immediately your program is terminated and remaining flow cannot execute. But if you handle the exception, what happened? That only exception block is skipped and remaining part of program executes without any halt. This thing we learned in the last class and we have seen some examples. Today's class, we will go for another keyword, which is else keyword. What does this else do? So this else, which is work similar to the for with else and while with else. So now I will write the syntax, how to write this one, and we will see how it will execute. So the syntax of this writing else is, so first we will start with the try block. Next we will put colon and we will give some indentation. What are the statements may generate exception? That statements I will write it here. And if any statement raise exception, that respective except block will be invoked. So here I will write any exception type. Which exception this is going to be generate, that exception type I will write. Again, I will give the indentation and I will write the statements. These statements are to handle the exception. Next, what can we do? We have to write the else block. Else followed by colon and we have to give the indentation. Next, we need to write some set of statements. That statements need to be executed. So when this one execute, when it does not execute. So here in the try block, if exception rise, okay, this else cannot execute. Okay, when it will execute, it executes when exception does not rise. In try block, okay, so in try block, if exception does not rise, then else will be executed. If exception rise in the try block, then immediately except will be called. Next else block cannot execute. Now I will show you with one simple example. So here, previous class, what is the program we have written? Zero division error we did. And now we have to include else block to that program and let us check how it will execute. So initially I am taking two integer values, int input, enter first integer, next y equal to int input, enter second integer I am asking. Next directly I will perform division operation, x divided by y. So from this line is going to generate exception. So I am going to write this one in the try block. Which exception it will raise? Zero division error. If I give y value as 0. Even these two statements also raise exception, but we will see this thing later. Next, what I am going to write? Except. Which exception it will generate? 0 division error. Next, simply I am going to convey denominator should not be 0. This simple message I am printing. Next, I am going to write else block. Okay. So what I am writing? One simple message I am writing. So working fine. This is the message I am executing inside the else block. So here, now let us go for the case studies. So if I am going to run this one. When I run, I am going to give 10 value as first integer, 2 value as second integer. So in this case, is this statement give any error? Is it generate any exception? No, because I have given the proper value 10/2, which does not raise exception. If it does not raise exception, except block cannot execute. So it is not raising exception. So definitely I can see the output else block. So I can see division value 10/2. You can see 5 along with the working fine will be appear. So can you see working fine? Yes, this is executing. Now wantedly I will give this denominator value as 0. Now you observe here. When I run this one, so which is giving 10, and next time second one is 0, means I am giving denominator value as 0. When denominator value as 0, what happened? This will raise exception. Which exception it will raise? Which exception it will raise? 0 division error it will raise. Then I can see this denominator should not be 0. And is it execute working fine? It won't execute because for this number, it is going to raise an exception so that else cannot execute. Now, when I hit enter, can you see when message like working fine? You cannot see. Why it is not appearing? Because try block generated exception. Try block raised exception. I hope it is clear to you. So if try block does not execute or does not generate any exception, doesn't raise exception in try block, then else block can be executed. Okay, so this is the way else will be work in your exception handling. Along with that, we have another block. Let us go for this one. Did I write? Right. So we understood what is try block, what is except block, what is else block. Now I will go for finally block. So what does this finally block do? This finally block will execute for always. Okay. So here first I will write the syntax, how to write this one. Next we will see example. Syntax. So first we write a try and I will write a statements. Next I will write except. Next I will write some statement. Else block statements. At last we need to write finally. Finally, and we will write the statements. So when this else has executed, this is executed if exception does not rise. Okay. When this except block is executed, if exception rise. Next, when this finally block it executes, this execute always. Executes always. Always means it doesn't matter whether exception rise or not. This block is definitely execute. Okay, but where the exception rise? Here exception rise. These statements may chance of throw exception. Okay, this block may contain some statement which generate exception. Except block will execute only when exception rise. Else block can execute only when exception does not, right? But finally block is execute for always. Okay, now I am going to include this one. So follow to this one. Yes. Which one I need to write? Finally, print I am finally block. I can execute always. Always is nothing but it doesn't matter whether exception rise or not. Now I am going to run this program. When I run, yes, it is asking me number. First number 10 and 0. 10, 0 means it will definitely rise exception. When exception rise, I can see this statement, but is it executes working fine? It does not execute, but I am finally block will be execute. Now you concentrate whether it is executing or not. So when I hit enter, yes, denominator should not be 0, which exception is rise. When exception rise, this statement is ignored, but I can see I am finally blocked. I can execute always. Next one, I will give another test case where exception does not rise. Let us check what is the output we will get. So when I am running this one, I am giving 10 as first integer. Second integer is 1. So this is valid. So this never rise exception. So 10 by 1, you will get a 10, and which does not exception means this statement cannot execute. But can we expect this line? Yes, because this is not rising exception. So I can see 10 followed by working fine will execute, followed by I am finally block also will be executed. Now I am going to hit enter. Can you see these three results? 10 is printed, working fine is printed, finally block is printed. Okay, so this is the order you should write. So coming to here, this one is optional. Optional means if you require, you include this else block, or if you do not require, you can skip this one. What about finally? This one is also optional. If you want to write this block, you can write, otherwise you can skip. So many programs we have written without these two things only. But if you want to handle exception, you definitely need to write these two blocks. Now, this is the way we have to understand how these keywords can be worked. Now we will include this rise. We will see in the next topic. Now I will go for another technique at this place.